In a world where royal duties often feel distant and formal, sometimes the most powerful moments happen when protocol takes a backseat to genuine human connection. What started as an ordinary royal visit to Wales would soon become an extraordinary tale of compassion that would touch hearts across the nation. When Princess Catherine encountered a young admirer whose unwavering faith and courage in the face of adversity caught her attention, she made a decision that would remind everyone why the royal family continues to hold such a special place in people's hearts. This is the true story of how a simple gesture from a future queen became a beacon of hope for one family and inspired millions of others to believe in the power of kindness. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the rolling hills of Cardiff as Princess Catherine stepped out of her car, her elegant navy coat fluttering gently in the Welsh breeze. It was supposed to be another routine royal engagement, one of dozens she would undertake throughout the year as part of her duties as the Princess of Wales. The charity event at the local children's hospital had been planned months in advance, with every detail carefully orchestrated by palace staff and hospital administrators. As Catherine walked through the hospital corridors, her warm smile immediately brightened the sterile environment. Nurses paused in their duties to catch a glimpse of the royal visitor, while doctors straightened their white coats and prepared to present their most important cases. The princess had always felt a special connection to healthcare institutions, particularly those serving children, and today would prove to be no different in terms of her genuine engagement with the staff and patients. In the pediatric wing, 8-year-old Emma Thompson lay in her hospital bed, her thin frame dwarfed by the large medical equipment surrounding her. Emma had been battling a rare form of childhood leukemia for over 2 years, enduring countless rounds of chemotherapy and spending more time in hospital rooms than in her own bedroom at home. Despite her circumstances, Emma's spirit remained unbroken, and her love for the royal family, particularly Princess Catherine, had become a source of comfort during her darkest moments. Emma's mother, Sarah Thompson, sat beside her daughter's bed, gently brushing the few remaining strands of Emma's once thick brown hair. Sarah had quit her job as a primary school teacher to become Emma's full-time caregiver, and the financial strain on their family had been overwhelming. Her husband, David, worked double shifts at the local factory to make ends meet, often arriving at the hospital late in the evening, exhausted but determined to spend time with his daughter before she fell asleep. The walls of Emma's room were covered with pictures and newspaper clippings of Princess Catherine. Every royal appearance, every charity event, every official photograph had been carefully cut out and pinned to a colorful bulletin board that Sarah had created to lift Emma's spirits. The little girl would spend hours studying these images, memorizing every detail of Catherine's outfits, her hairstyles, and her radiant smile. Emma's fascination with the princess had begun during her first hospital stay, when a nurse had brought her a magazine featuring Catherine's wedding to Prince William. The fairy tale romance and the beautiful ceremony had captured Emma's imagination during a particularly difficult treatment period. From that moment, Princess Catherine became more than just a royal figure to Emma. She became a symbol of hope, elegance, and strength that helped the young girl cope with her illness. As word spread through the hospital that Princess Catherine was visiting that day, Emma's excitement was palpable despite her weakened condition. Sarah had helped her daughter put on her favorite pink pajamas, the ones with little crowns printed all over them, and had even managed to style what remained of Emma's hair with a small tiara headband that had been a gift from her grandmother. The hospital staff had not initially planned for the princess to visit Emma's room specifically. The royal itinerary was packed with meetings with department heads, tours of new facilities, and group interactions with patients in the main recreation room. However, as Catherine made her way through the hospital, something unexpected began to happen that would change the course of the entire visit. Dr. Michael Roberts, the head of the pediatric oncology department, had been explaining the hospital's latest treatment protocols to the princess when they passed by Emma's room. Through the open door, Catherine caught a glimpse of the elaborate shrine to herself that decorated the walls. The sight was both touching and overwhelming, and she paused mid-conversation to take in the full scope of Emma's devotion. Sarah noticed the royal entourage in the hallway and quickly stood up, smoothing down her clothes nervously. She had not expected this moment, had not prepared for the possibility that her daughter's idol might actually see the tribute that had taken months to create. Emma, sensing something significant was happening, struggled to sit up in her bed, her eyes wide with anticipation. Princess Catherine excused herself from the group of officials and stepped closer to Emma's doorway. The sincerity of the display struck her immediately. This was not the work of a casual fan, but rather the heartfelt expression of a child who had found comfort and inspiration in the most unlikely of places. Each clipping had been placed with care, each photograph positioned to create a collage that spoke of hope and admiration. The moment their eyes met, Emma's face transformed with pure joy. Despite her illness, despite the tubes and monitors that surrounded her, she managed the brightest smile Catherine had seen all day. The princess felt her heart skip a beat as she recognized something profound in the child's expression, something that transcended the usual excitement of meeting a celebrity or royal figure. Catherine approached the bed slowly, mindful of the medical equipment and the fragile nature of the situation. Sarah began to speak, her voice trembling with emotion as she tried to explain her daughter's condition and her incredible admiration for the princess. But Catherine raised her hand gently, indicating that no explanation was necessary. She could see everything she needed to know in Emma's eyes, and in the loving dedication that filled every corner of the room. The conversation that followed was unlike any Catherine had experienced during her years of royal duties. Emma, despite her young age and weakened state, spoke with a wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. She told Catherine about her dreams of becoming a princess herself one day, about the strength she drew from watching Catherine's public appearances, and about how she practiced waving like royalty to the other children in the hospital. As Catherine listened, she noticed Emma's hand-drawn pictures scattered on the bedside table. They were crude but earnest attempts to recreate some of Catherine's most famous moments, from her wedding day to various charity events. One drawing in particular caught her attention. It showed Catherine and Emma standing together, both wearing crowns, both smiling, with the words "my best friend" written in shaky childish handwriting at the bottom. The emotion of the moment was not lost on anyone present. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her daughter interact with her hero, while the hospital staff stood respectfully at a distance, understanding that they were witnessing something special. Even the usually composed princess felt her throat tighten with emotion as she realized the profound impact her public role had on this brave little girl. Catherine spent far longer in Emma's room than protocol typically allowed. She examined each photograph on the wall, asking Emma to tell her about specific events and sharing some behind-the-scenes details that made Emma giggle with delight. The princess was struck by how much Emma knew about her work, her charities, and her family, demonstrating a level of attention and care that was both flattering and deeply moving. As their conversation continued, Catherine learned more about Emma's treatment journey. The little girl spoke matter-of-factly about her chemotherapy sessions, her hospital stays, and her hopes for recovery, but she always returned to talking about how Catherine's example had helped her stay strong. Emma explained that whenever she felt scared or sick, she would look at the pictures on her wall and imagine what Catherine would do in difficult situations. The visit had already exceeded its planned duration, and Catherine could see her security detail becoming restless in the hallway. Palace protocol dictated that she should move on to the next scheduled event, but something about this encounter felt too important to rush. She made a decision that would surprise everyone, including herself. She asked if she could spend a few more minutes with Emma, sending the rest of her entourage ahead to the next appointment.
In those precious additional minutes, Catherine and Emma talked like old friends.
The princess shared stories about her own children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, which fascinated Emma beyond measure. Catherine described their playful antics, their favorite games, and their bedtime routines, painting a picture of royal family life that was both magical and wonderfully normal. Emma, emboldened by Catherine's genuine interest, began sharing her own dreams and aspirations. Despite her illness, she spoke confidently about her plans for the future, her desire to help other sick children, and her hope to one day meet Catherine again when she was healthy. The maturity and optimism of this young girl in the face of such adversity left Catherine both inspired and humbled. As the conversation drew to a close, Emma made a request that would stay with Catherine long after she left the hospital. With the innocence and directness that only a child possesses, Emma asked if Catherine might consider writing her a letter, something she could keep and read whenever she felt scared or lonely. The request was simple, but the hope in Emma's eyes made it feel like the most important thing in the world. Catherine promised Emma that she would indeed write to her, a commitment that she made not as a duty or obligation, but as a genuine desire to maintain this unexpected connection. She could see how much such a letter would mean to Emma, and she found herself already composing words in her mind as she prepared to leave the room. The goodbye was emotional for everyone involved. Emma's energy was beginning to fade, but her smile remained radiant as Catherine leaned down to give her a gentle hug. Sarah expressed her gratitude through tears, thanking the princess not just for the visit, but for the joy she had brought to her daughter's difficult journey. As Catherine left Emma's room and rejoined her official duties, she found it difficult to concentrate on the remaining events of the day. Her mind kept returning to the brave little girl with the wall full of pictures, and she began to understand that this encounter was more than just a touching moment during a royal visit. It was a reminder of the real impact that public figures can have on individual lives and the responsibility that comes with that influence. The rest of the hospital visit proceeded according to plan, but Catherine's demeanor had subtly changed. Her smile seemed more genuine, her interactions more heartfelt, as if her conversation with Emma had reminded her of why these public engagements mattered in the first place. The hospital staff noticed the change, commenting later that they had never seen the princess seem so personally invested in her visit. As Catherine's car pulled away from the hospital later that afternoon, she found herself thinking about Emma's request for a letter. What had started as a simple promise to a sick child was beginning to feel like an opportunity for something much more meaningful. Catherine realized that she wanted to do more than just fulfill a polite obligation. She wanted to create something that would truly make a difference in Emma's life. Back at Kensington Palace, Princess Catherine found herself unable to shake the memory of her encounter with Emma Thompson. As she went through her evening routine, helping with her children's homework and reading bedtime stories to Prince Louis, her thoughts kept drifting back to the brave little girl in the Cardiff hospital. The image of Emma's wall, covered with carefully collected photographs and clippings, had etched itself deeply in Catherine's mind. That night, after the children had gone to sleep, Catherine sat in her private study, a room lined with books and family photographs, where she often retreated to work on her correspondence and prepare for upcoming engagements. The warm glow of the desk lamp created an intimate atmosphere as she pulled out a sheet of her personal letterhead, the cream-colored paper bearing the elegant insignia of her royal position. But as Catherine lifted her pen, she realized that her usual approach to official correspondence would not be appropriate for this letter. This was not a formal thank you note or a diplomatic message that would be crafted by her staff and reviewed multiple times before sending. This was something entirely different, something personal and heartfelt that needed to come directly from her own experience and emotions. Catherine set aside the formal letterhead and instead chose a simpler piece of stationery, one that felt more appropriate for a letter between friends. She wanted Emma to understand that this message was not just another royal duty, but a genuine communication from someone who had been deeply moved by their meeting. As she began to write, Catherine found herself drawing on her own experiences as a mother. She thought about her fears for her children's safety and health, and how devastating it would be to watch one of them struggle with a serious illness. This perspective helped her understand, in some small way, what Sarah Thompson must be going through as she watched her daughter fight such a difficult battle. The letter began to take shape as Catherine wrote about their meeting, describing how impressed she had been by Emma's courage and positive spirit. She shared her admiration for the way Emma had decorated her hospital room, and how the collection of photographs had shown her the real impact that public service could have on individual lives. Catherine wanted Emma to know that their conversation had been meaningful to her as well, not just a routine part of her royal duties. As Catherine continued writing, she found herself opening up in ways that were unusual for her formal communications. She wrote about her own children, describing Prince George's love of airplanes, Princess Charlotte's artistic talents, and Prince Louis's mischievous sense of humor. She thought Emma would enjoy these personal details, and she hoped they might provide some comfort during difficult moments. Catherine also wrote about her work with various charities, particularly those focused on children's health and welfare. She explained how meeting patients like Emma reminded her of why this work was so important, and how young people like Emma inspired her to continue advocating for better healthcare and support for families facing medical challenges. The letter grew longer than Catherine had initially planned, but each paragraph felt necessary. She wrote about the importance of hope and determination, qualities she had seen clearly demonstrated in Emma during their brief meeting. Catherine wanted to encourage Emma to continue fighting, to keep believing in her recovery, and to know that she had supporters who believed in her strength. As she wrote about hope and recovery, Catherine was careful not to make promises about Emma's medical outcome that she could not keep. Instead, she focused on celebrating Emma's spirit and encouraging her to take each day as it came, finding joy in small moments and drawing strength from the love of her family and the support of her medical team. Catherine also addressed Emma's dream of becoming a princess herself one day. Rather than dismiss this as childish fantasy, Catherine embraced it, writing about how Emma already demonstrated many of the qualities that make someone truly royal: kindness, courage, grace under pressure, and the ability to bring joy to others even during difficult circumstances. The process of writing this letter became unexpectedly emotional for Catherine. As she put her thoughts and feelings onto paper, she realized how much the encounter with Emma had affected her. The little girl's unwavering optimism in the face of such adversity had reminded Catherine of the power of human resilience and the importance of maintaining hope, even in the darkest circumstances. As Catherine neared the end of her letter, she wanted to include something special, something that would make this communication even more meaningful for Emma. She decided to include a small personal photograph, one of herself with her children in a casual family moment, and she wrote on the back a personal message of encouragement specifically for Emma.
Catherine also made a decision that surprised even herself.
She wrote in the letter that she would like to maintain contact with Emma, asking her to write back and share updates about her treatment and recovery. This was not typical protocol for royal correspondence, but Catherine felt that this situation warranted breaking from usual procedures. Before sealing the letter, Catherine read through it several times, making small adjustments to ensure that her tone struck the right balance between warmth and appropriateness. She wanted Emma to feel the genuine affection and concern behind the words, while also maintaining the dignity expected of her position. The following morning, Catherine instructed her private secretary to arrange for the letter to be delivered personally to Emma at the hospital, rather than sending it through the usual postal service. She wanted to ensure that Emma received it as quickly as possible, and she thought the personal delivery would add to the significance of the gesture. Meanwhile, back in Cardiff, Emma's condition had taken a slight turn for the worse. The latest round of chemotherapy had left her more tired than usual, and she had been spending most of her time sleeping. Sarah had been sitting by her daughter's bedside for 2 days straight, barely leaving except to grab quick meals from the hospital cafeteria. David had taken time off from work to be with his family during this difficult period. The financial sacrifice was significant, but he could not bear the thought of Emma going through this rough patch without both parents present. The small family had drawn closer together as they faced each new challenge in Emma's treatment. Roberts had been monitoring Emma's progress closely, adjusting her medications and treatment schedule to help manage the side effects of her therapy. While he remained cautiously optimistic about her long-term prognosis, he could see how the current setback was affecting both Emma and her parents. The medical team was doing everything possible to help Emma through this difficult phase. It was during this challenging time that Catherine's letter arrived at the hospital. The private secretary who delivered it explained to Sarah that Princess Catherine had specifically requested that the letter be brought directly to Emma, and that it contained a personal message that the princess hoped would bring some comfort during Emma's treatment. Sarah accepted the envelope with trembling hands, immediately recognizing the royal seal and the elegant script of her daughter's name written across the front. She knew that this letter would mean the world to Emma, and she decided to wait until her daughter was feeling slightly better before sharing this surprise. Later that afternoon, when Emma woke from a long nap and seemed more alert than she had been in days, Sarah gently told her about the special delivery. Emma's eyes widened with disbelief and excitement as Sarah showed her the unopened envelope. Despite her weakness, Emma insisted on sitting up in bed to properly receive this incredible gift. As Sarah carefully opened the envelope and began to read the letter aloud, Emma's face transformed with wonder and joy. The personal tone of Catherine's message, the specific references to their conversation, and the genuine warmth of the words brought tears to Emma's eyes. She asked Sarah to read certain passages multiple times, particularly the parts about Catherine's children and the encouragement about Emma's own princess dreams. The photograph that Catherine had included became Emma's most treasured possession. She held it carefully in her small hands, studying every detail of the casual family scene and reading the personal message on the back over and over again. The image showed Catherine as a mother and person, not just as a royal figure, and this personal glimpse made their connection feel even more real and meaningful. Emma's response to receiving the letter was immediate and remarkable. Her spirits lifted dramatically, and she began to show more energy and engagement than she had displayed in weeks. The nursing staff noticed the change immediately, commenting on how much brighter Emma seemed and how her improved mood was positively affecting her overall condition. Dr. Roberts was amazed by the transformation in his young patient. While he knew that emotional well-being played an important role in recovery, he had rarely seen such a dramatic improvement in a patient's outlook following a single event. He made notes in Emma's medical chart about the positive impact of the royal correspondence, recognizing it as a significant factor in her improved condition. The letter also had a profound effect on Sarah and David. Seeing their daughter's joy and renewed hope reminded them of the importance of maintaining optimism throughout their family's medical journey. Catherine's words of support and understanding resonated deeply with them as parents, and they felt less alone in their struggle knowing that someone they admired was thinking of their daughter. Emma immediately wanted to write a response to Princess Catherine, but her current weakness made this physically challenging. Sarah helped her daughter compose a reply, acting as scribe while Emma dictated her thoughts and feelings. The resulting letter was filled with gratitude, updates about her treatment, and excited questions about Catherine's children and work. As Emma worked on her response, she began to feel more like herself again. The combination of Catherine's encouragement and the excitement of having a correspondence with her hero gave Emma a renewed sense of purpose and hope, She started participating more actively in her treatment, asking questions about her medications, and showing interest in her recovery timeline. The hospital staff were amazed by the change in Emma's attitude and engagement. Nurses who had been concerned about her recent decline were now commenting on her improved appetite, better sleep patterns, and increased willingness to participate in physical therapy sessions. The psychological boost from Catherine's letter had created a positive ripple effect throughout Emma's entire treatment experience. Catherine's gesture had accomplished something that all the medical interventions and family support had been unable to achieve in recent weeks. It had restored Emma's sense of hope and wonder about the future. The simple act of taking time to write a personal letter had provided exactly the kind of emotional medicine that Emma needed during this critical phase of her treatment. When Emma's heartfelt reply reached Kensington Palace 3 weeks later, Princess Catherine was deeply moved by the young girl's courage and determination. The letter, written in Sarah's neat handwriting but clearly containing Emma's own words and thoughts, painted a picture of a child who had found new strength in their connection. Emma wrote about her treatment progress, her dreams for the future, and her gratitude for Catherine's kindness in ways that touched the princess profoundly. Catherine realized that what had begun as a simple gesture of compassion had evolved into something much more significant. Emma's response revealed how much their correspondence meant to her, and Catherine felt a genuine responsibility to continue this meaningful relationship. She began to see Emma not just as a patient she had met during a royal visit, but as a brave young person who had taught her important lessons about resilience and hope. As the weeks passed, Catherine made it a priority to stay informed about Emma's progress. Through discreet inquiries with the hospital staff, she learned that Emma's condition had stabilized and that her response to treatment had improved dramatically since receiving the first letter. The medical team reported that Emma's positive attitude was contributing significantly to her recovery, and they attributed much of this improvement to the emotional boost she had received from the royal correspondence. Dr. Roberts had never seen anything quite like the transformation in Emma's approach to her treatment. The young girl who had been struggling with the physical and emotional challenges of her illness had become an active participant in her recovery process. She asked detailed questions about her medications, maintained a positive attitude during difficult procedures, and even began encouraging other young patients on the ward. Emma's newfound strength and optimism had a ripple effect throughout the pediatric oncology unit. Other children were inspired by her positive attitude, and parents of patients began to see Emma as a source of hope for their own families. The nursing staff noticed that Emma had become an unofficial cheerleader for the entire ward, offering encouragement to newcomers and celebrating the small victories of her fellow patients. Catherine decided to write a second letter to Emma, this time focusing on the reports she had received about Emma's improved condition and her positive influence on other patients. She wanted Emma to understand that her courage was not only helping her own recovery, but was also making a difference in the lives of others facing similar challenges. In this second letter, Catherine shared more personal insights about her own work with children's charities and how meeting Emma had influenced her approach to these causes. She wrote about the importance of peer support among young patients and praised Emma for the leadership she was showing on the ward. Catherine wanted Emma to recognize that her strength was having a broader impact beyond her own medical journey. Catherine also included updates about her own children, sharing funny stories about their school activities and family adventures that she thought would bring Emma joy. She had learned from Emma's first response that these personal details were particularly meaningful to the young girl, who seemed to treasure any glimpse into the everyday life of the royal family. As their correspondence continued, Catherine began to see opportunities to involve Emma in her charity work in meaningful ways. She wrote about her upcoming visits to children's hospitals and asked for Emma's advice about how to best connect with young patients facing serious illnesses. Catherine genuinely valued Emma's perspective, recognizing that the young girl had insights that could help improve her approach to these important visits. Emma's enthusiasm for being consulted about Catherine's charity work was overwhelming. She spent hours with Sarah discussing her recommendations, drawing on her own experiences as a patient to suggest ways that Catherine could make hospital visits more meaningful for children and their families. Emma's suggestions were thoughtful and practical, demonstrating a wisdom that impressed everyone who heard them. The correspondence between Catherine and Emma began to attract attention from hospital staff and administrators who were amazed by the positive impact of this unusual relationship. Dr. Ben Wanker Roberts documented the correlation between Emma's improved condition and her correspondence with the princess, recognizing it as a case study in the importance of emotional support in pediatric treatment. Sarah and David watched their daughter's transformation with wonder and gratitude, The little girl who had been struggling to maintain hope during her darkest moments had become a beacon of optimism, not just for herself, but for their entire family. They credited Catherine's kindness with giving Emma the emotional strength she needed to fight her illness more effectively. As Emma's condition continued to improve, she began to dream about the possibility of meeting Catherine again, perhaps when she was healthy enough to attend a royal event or visit the palace. These dreams gave her concrete goals to work toward, and her medical team incorporated these aspirations into her treatment planning, using them as motivation for Emma to maintain her progress. Catherine learned about Emma's dreams of a future meeting and began to consider how she might make this happen when Emma's health permitted. She consulted with her staff about the possibility of arranging a special visit or invitation that would be appropriate for Emma's medical situation and would provide the kind of memorable experience that would continue to support her recovery. The story of their correspondence began to spread beyond the hospital walls, though Catherine and her staff were careful to protect Emma's privacy and maintain the personal nature of their relationship. Hospital staff spoke quietly about the remarkable transformation they had witnessed, and word began to circulate about the positive impact that royal attention could have on young patients. Other families dealing with childhood illnesses began to hear about Emma's experience, and many found hope in the story of how royal compassion had made such a significant difference in one child's treatment journey. While not every family could expect to receive personal letters from members of the royal family, Emma's story demonstrated the power of hope and the importance of maintaining connections to sources of inspiration during difficult times. Catherine began to incorporate lessons learned from her correspondence with Emma into her broader charity work. She spent more time during hospital visits listening to individual patients, learning about their personal interests and finding ways to connect with them on a more meaningful level. Emma's influence helped Catherine understand that sometimes the most powerful support she could offer was simply genuine personal attention and ongoing concern. As months passed, Emma's health continued to improve steadily. Her treatment was progressing better than her medical team had dared to hope, and she was able to spend more time at home with her family. Even during her periods away from the hospital, Emma maintained her correspondence with Catherine, sharing updates about her life outside of treatment and her excitement about returning to normal childhood activities. Catherine was thrilled to learn about each milestone in Emma's recovery. When Emma was finally able to return to school part-time, Catherine wrote a special letter celebrating this achievement and encouraging Emma to pursue her academic interests while continuing to prioritize her health. The princess understood how meaningful these normal childhood experiences would be for Emma after spending so much time focused on medical treatment. Emma's return to school created new opportunities for her to share her experience and inspire other children facing challenges in their own lives. Her classmates were amazed by her correspondence with Princess Catherine, but they were even more impressed by Emma's courage and positive attitude throughout her illness. Emma became a role model for resilience and hope among her peers. Teachers at Emma's school noticed that her experience had given her a maturity and empathy that was unusual for her age. She was particularly kind to classmates who were struggling with difficulties of their own, and she had a special ability to help other children maintain hope when they faced challenges. Emma's teachers recognized that her experience with illness and her correspondence with Catherine had taught her valuable lessons about the importance of support and encouragement. As Emma's recovery progressed and she regained her strength, Catherine began to explore the possibility of arranging a special meeting when Emma was fully healthy. She wanted to celebrate Emma's recovery with a memorable experience that would mark the end of this difficult chapter in the young girl's life and acknowledge the courage she had shown throughout her treatment. The planning for this potential meeting became a project that brought joy to everyone involved. Catherine's staff worked discreetly with Emma's family and medical team to determine the best timing and location for such an encounter. They wanted to ensure that Emma would be healthy enough to fully enjoy the experience, and that the meeting would serve as a celebration of her recovery, rather than a continuation of her identity as a patient. Emma's excitement about the possibility of meeting Catherine again gave her additional motivation to focus on her recovery and maintain the healthy lifestyle that her medical team recommended. She worked diligently on her physical therapy, followed her dietary guidelines carefully, and maintained the positive attitude that had become her trademark throughout the hospital and at school. The correspondence between Catherine and Emma had evolved from a simple act of compassion into a meaningful relationship that had benefited both participants. Catherine had learnt important lessons about the impact of personal attention and genuine concern, while Emma had discovered inner strength she never knew she possessed. Their exchange of letters had created a bond that transcended their different circumstances and had demonstrated the power of human connection to promote healing and hope. As Emma approached the end of her treatment protocol, with doctors expressing cautious optimism about her long-term prognosis, Both she and Catherine began to look forward to a future meeting that would celebrate not just Emma's recovery, but the remarkable friendship that had developed through their correspondence. The little girl who had decorated her hospital room with pictures of her royal hero had become a source of inspiration for the princess herself, creating a circle of mutual support and admiration that had enriched both of their lives in unexpected ways.